But we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. That's the whole point of this channel. Because if you can thrive, then you can actually leave a dent in this universe. And again, if you can become something great, you must become that thing. Opportunity is obligation, guys. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Must Become YouTube channel. I believe that what potential you have within you, it's your obligation to actualize that potential. My name is Spencer. Today's another video that we're going to be returning to the lenses, guys. This is going to be probably the most important video in the whole lens series. I think that this lens definitely serves every man if they use it properly. It'll help you understand where you came from, and by understanding where you came from, you'll be able to understand where you're going. So guys, before I jump into this video, let me guys just remind you that if you like any of this content that you end up seeing, please give me a like. It really helps me out in the algorithms. It'd also be great if you guys subscribed if you want to see more. Ring that notification bell. That way you can derive as much value from my channel and from this platform as possible, so you know every single time I upload. And finally, guys, leave me a comment in the comment section below, because I respond to every single comment. It's been really, really great talking with you guys, having some people giving me some feedback about suggestions that they'd like to see in terms of videos. So guys, please feel free to contribute, because the goal here is also to build a community. Guys, I'll also mention that this is, I believe, the 4th, 5th, or maybe even 6th video in this series, the whole lenses series. And let me remind you guys that the more of these videos you watch, the more you'll be able to stack these lenses on top of each other, which will give you a more and more sophisticated problem solving kind of kit, which will allow you to actually analyze life, analyze your decisions, and analyze the relationships in your life. That'll allow you to determine what's serving you, what's not serving you, what the best solution for your problems are. Without going back and watching those original videos, guys, I'm betting you're only going to have about 60-70% of the value in this video that you could derive. So I'd highly recommend you go back and watch those other ones, because this one stacks on top of all those other lenses, and it's really, really important that you guys watch those before finishing up with this final video here. So with the initial plugs and the warning to go back and watch the other videos out of the way, let's jump right into this video. Guys, I'm just going to come right out of the gate and tell you what this lens is. This lens is called the ancestral lens. The ancestral lens. Guys, this one is very, very important, essentially because it's taking where we came from and it's asking us to use that information to help us understand where we're going. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how an ancestral lens can help us understand what's best for us in a day-to-day manner with respect to our practices and with respect to our diets, with respect to our exercise regimes, all of these things. Kind of at the end, I'll tell you about how this lens can help you solve problems, help you get to answers quicker, especially when you're faced with a dichotomy. Do I go road A or do I go road B? This will be a very, very helpful video for you guys. So let's just jump into kind of how the ancestral lens can help us understand exactly where we came from and some of the best practices for us to take on our day-to-day lives. If we think back to where our ancient ancestors would have come from, guys, you know, we can kind of picture a Paleolithic man, and we can kind of think back to this guy who's maybe like naked and he's hunting or he's making tools or whatever. He's walking around, he's getting sun all over his body. His feet are planted firmly on the earth. He's around a tribe of other people who care about him and who he depends on and who depend on him to make sure that they have a mutual kind of continuing in this world and they don't just perish. He definitely was drinking water from natural sources. He was eating predominantly meat when he had the opportunity. He was sleeping in a dark environment. When the sun wasn't up, he'd probably go into a cave or something like under several shaded trees, things like that, which will create a lot of darkness for him, and he'd be naturally woken up when the sun would rise. We paint this bit of an image of a guy who was getting a lot of nutrients both from the sun by way of vitamin D. He was getting a lot of nutrients through meat he was eating, right? Because he wouldn't have just eaten muscle meat. He would have included a nose to tail kind of approach to eating an animal. So that would have been everything from the nose to the tail, including the organs, including the blood, including everything. And he effectively would have had to perform exercise in order to eat. So he would have been exercising regularly, especially a cardiovascular component and perhaps also an anaerobic component if he had to lift things, move things, maybe sharpen tools, anything like that. Now, even though in today's society, okay, we have all of these conveniences, right? We have our phone, we have these cameras like the one I'm filming on today. We have things that help us hunt from a range very easily, like guns, bows, arrows. But this is only for a tiny fraction of human existence, guys. For the majority of time, like I said, we were naked out with our tribesmen and tribeswomen, and we were out there and we were hunting, we were in the sun, we were drinking high quality fresh water. We had that sense of community around us. Frankly, we weren't just surviving, we were thriving. It seems kind of counterintuitive to realize that with all these conveniences, people are getting more and more unhappy, not more and more happy. But the ancestral lens will help us understand what things can actually bring us true fulfillment in our lives, help us feel good, especially from a biochemical, neurochemical, and kind of physical intuitive way. So I'm going to start breaking down some of the things that I mentioned kind of here in this intro, little things that would have been great from the ancestral perspective, and kind of tell you a little bit more about them. Again, I'm just going to kind of skim the surface here because this video is to introduce you to the lens. If there's anything I mentioned in this video that you guys want to hear more about, please let me know in the comment section. I'll make an entire video just for you. So the first thing is the practice of grounding. So what you have to understand first about grounding is it may seem like
woo-woo or voodoo or whatever,
having your feet planted firmly on the earth. It might seem like it's a bunch of nonsense, but let me explain to you how it works. Both your body and the earth has ions. Positive and negative ions. Essentially, when your feet are firmly planted on the earth, you allow for an efficient ion exchange, which has been shown to actually help people fight off disease, combat illness, and things like this. So essentially, having your feet on the earth is actually good for you. Now, it doesn't take that much of a stretch of the imagination to understand why that might be, right? We spent so much time of our lives with our feet firmly planted on the earth. We weren't wearing shoes for the majority of human existence. Or at least if we were interacting with the earth in other ways. Maybe we were sitting down and coming into contact with it. We had our hands touching the ground at some time, touching the trees, touching all these sorts of things, being around nature. We are having our direct bare skin exposed to the earth. And that's just one thing that really helps us. So right off the bat, we can see that grounding continues to have benefits today, even though we've isolated ourselves in these apartments and these houses. Getting your feet firmly planted on the ground with your direct skin directly on the ground is a good idea for your health. The next one, which is kind of contentious, but really when you look into the actual data, is really not. This is the sun, getting direct sunlight on your body. And gentlemen, I'm not just talking about your face, your chest, your legs. I'm talking about it all.
I'm talking about your ass. I'm talking about your balls. I'm talking about everywhere. Get sun everywhere.
This has been shown to actually increase testosterone and a healthy libido, as well as encouraging general health within the body. And honestly, from a more intuitive perspective, just go out and give it a try for a couple days and see how you feel. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel happier. You're going to feel more energetic, and your libido is going to spike. Trust me. You know, on the note of the sun, there's actually some discussion. You know, we talk about sunburns, people concerned about sunburns. And while skin cancer and sunburns are a real consideration, there's a huge community of people, especially in this ancestral community. There's a lot of doctors out there. If you're interested in any of the links, I can absolutely provide those, that talk about that we completely misunderstand the way sunburns work. You know, we think that sunburn is just exposure to the sun, and if we don't have sunscreen, then we're going to get a sunburn. And while yes, maybe some people are more predisposed genetically to get sunburns, there's another argument at play actually that we don't often hear about, because there's no money really behind this argument. There's no product to push, and that's essentially that the reason we get sunburns is not because we are not properly protecting ourselves from the sun from the outside, but instead from the inside. We're not having the right levels of nutrition in our system that allows us to actually absorb the sun in a meaningful way, in a valuable way, in a healthy way. And instead, we go straight to sunburning to a point where we're actually damaging our skin. That's because we don't have the right precursors to actually build up a healthy resistance to what we need to resist and allow the good rays from the sun to penetrate our skin, providing us with energy. Moving on from skin, guys, another thing that's really, really amazing is, you know, and there's a lot of doctors that talk about this a lot. One of the best things you can do for yourself upon waking is expose yourself to sunlight. You know, there's some people who use, like, I have one in my room, for example. I have a little product, if you guys are interested in what it is. Again, I can put that in the comment section. But I have a little product that simulates sunlight because I get up really early when the sun's not really up yet, usually. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. But the best thing you can do if you wake up somewhere where there is a lot of sunlight is the first thing you can do is
beeline for some sunlight.
Go straight outside and get about 5-10 minutes of direct sunlight in your eyes. This will help wake you up. And a lot of studies have shown that this is going to increase your mood, energy, motivation, and attention throughout the day, guys. So make sure you get sun directly on your face and in your eyes, especially right after you wake up. The sun is really, really valuable. And it's one of those things that, again, we take an ancestral lens and we ask ourselves why that may have been. And of course, it's because back in our ancestors' days, when the sun was up, that meant it was time for us to go and hunt and prepare food again, which means that we're going to survive. And to do that, we need to be alert. We need to be on our game, all those sorts of things. So the sun would actually trigger a lot of things in us, especially from a neurochemical perspective and a hormonal perspective that would kick us into play so that we could go and get our next meal. But still today, even though we don't have to do that, and we have all these conveniences like Uber Eats and all these other things.
Go check out my last lens video to hear what I think about Uber Eats.
But even though we have these conveniences, guys, really they're taking away from us. They're not giving. We are still programmed for hundreds of thousands of years to act a certain way in accordance with nature. Simulating the sun rising with some sort of light, or going direct and getting the sunlight, which is absolutely the best option, will help you with all these things from a neurochemical perspective. It'll keep you going for the rest of your day. Next thing, which is incredibly important, is water. Guys, our ancestors would have drank water from a fresh water source, and we wouldn't have packaged it in plastic. Nowadays, there are things called endocrine disruptors or estrogenics, as was coined by Dr. Anthony J., a phenomenal doctor, by the way, if you guys want to learn anything about estrogenics and how men's estrogen are going down, down, down as a result of the products in our environment and just our environments themselves. I'd highly recommend Dr. Anthony J. But essentially, we would have consumed water directly from the source. Nowadays, guys, we have it in plastic. We have fluoride in our water. We have chlorine in our water, especially city water, guys. We absolutely need to avoid that because this is wreaking absolute havoc on our hormonal system in our bodies. It's lowering our testosterone, it's lowering our fertility, and it's lowering our vitality. So with water, you absolutely want to store it in metal or glass if you have to. Ideally, you want to get a filter. I'll get into how you can use this lens a little bit better, but essentially, hopefully you're already beginning to see a little bit of a picture, which is we look how our ancestors would have done it, and we understand that's still going to be evolutionarily consistent with the bodies we're in now. And that's what's going to help us thrive to accomplish our missions and leave a dent in the universe. But water is absolutely crucial, guys, because it's abundant in most countries. We can find it almost anywhere we go, but the quality is so low. True true high quality water that hasn't been tampered with, doesn't contain estrogenics or endocrine disruptors. Very hard to find, guys. The next topic I want to discuss really quickly is community. We see what happens when we isolate a human being. One of the worst forms of torture and worst forms of punishment that we enforce as a society on people is solitary confinement, because we understand what a torture that is. We're not meant to be isolated. We're meant to be with a tribe. We're meant to be with a community. And so if you're someone who's, again, trying to change the world, trying to become what they must become, understand you're not going to be able to do this by yourself. Even Warren Buffett talks about how he thinks he's still doing so well and he's still kicking around and he's still sharp as a whip. He says he has good people around him and he has a lot of happiness and he does things he enjoys doing. But then you look at the guy's diet and it's absolutely terrible. So there must be something to this whole community thing. Guys, you want to be making sure you're spending regular time with people you love. People who make you laugh, people who make you smile, people who make you happy.
This might, again, sound like voodoo and woo-woo, but it's very, very important.
This is how we would have been in ancestral times, and this is how we need to continue to be. Of course, there's time to be grinding and to set yourself apart from everybody else just so you can kind of go invisible for a bit and focus on what you need to focus on. But that's a phase. That's not a permanent lifestyle, especially if you want to do something big in this life. Now, moving on a little bit, I touched on sun for a little bit, but now let's talk a little bit more specifically about sleep. I'm sure you guys have all seen this fad that's going around where everyone's wearing their funky yellow glasses, and you might think that's kind of silly, but there is a reason for that. Some people dispute the science, but again, this is why the ancestral lens is so important. We can look at it from an ancestral lens and ask ourselves,
Does it seem to make sense? Does it seem to check out?
And so essentially what these yellow glasses do, these blue blocking glasses, if anyone hasn't heard, is essentially they block blue light. Now, again, we think about when we wake up and the sky is bright blue, and we've evolved to have that set off certain neurochemicals in our brain which make us feel alert. But now with so many artificial lights and so many screens and so many monitors and things like that, lots of things are emitting blue light. And if we do that close to bed, then our brain is still being triggered to think that it's daytime and that we should be alert, which is in turn going to hurt our sleep, which hurts our recovery, hurts our memory, hurts our total brain power. So people begin to wear these blue blocking glasses in the early evening so that they can begin to try and cut out the blue light, which means that they can hopefully sleep more effectively. Some people even go as far as to change the bulbs in their house or the bulbs in their apartment so that they can emit more red light. They can turn on the red light function closer to evening. That's something that I do. I'm not sure if it helps that much, but again, the ancestral lens leads me to believe that it probably helps somewhat. Furthermore, my sleep is definitely improved and I've always been a very, very light sleeper. I'm going to do a video specifically about what I struggle with for sleep in case there's anybody else out there who struggles with the same thing, and I can tell you what I did to enhance my sleep. But definitely for now, guys, what you want is that blue light in the morning. You want to change over more to an
Orange, pinkish, reddish hue in the evening.
Wearing some specific glasses over your eyes can help. But then finally at night, guys, this is very important. There's two things you want to do to optimize your sleep. Number one is have a cold room. I think the recommendation for a cold sleeping room is supposed to be something around 62 degrees, 63 degrees, something in there. But the second thing you want to do, guys, is you want to have an absolutely dark room. The dark room is important. You want to have it as pitch black as you can. Our ancestors would not have had LEDs or LCD lights in their caves and whatever so that they can continue to party after the sun goes down. When the sun went down, that was basically it. Occasionally they could light a fire, but guess what kind of light that emits?
Red light.
It's not emitting this bright fluorescent blue or bright fluorescent white light. Candles are absolutely okay. Again, that's evolutionarily consistent if you think about it. Again, you can use the ancestral lens to apply to think, well,
are candles a good idea or a bad idea?
Same thing.
Are phone screens a good idea or a bad idea?
It becomes pretty clear. Whether you like to hear it or not, guys, circadian rhythms are a real thing. Our bodies do have a clock. Our bodies do have hormonal and cellular signals in order to encourage alertness and sleepiness. So we want to use that to our advantage, use our environment to impact those processes as much as possible so we can take advantage of our day, which can help us leave a dent in the universe if we do that day after day after day. Now I'm going to move on to probably my favorite component of the ancestral lens and the ancestral kind of perspective, the ancestral way of living. My absolute favorite is nutrition. Now, I could definitely make tons of videos about this by itself, but I'm going to give you a quick overview. A lot of people don't know what to eat in order to feel good or to have energy or to be strong or any of these sorts of things. I'm going to give you my take. And of course, I didn't come to this by myself. I've done a lot of research. I've read from a lot of doctors, and anyone who knows me personally knows I'm a little bit obsessive with Google Scholar. I like to go through scholarly articles and read them and see for myself what actually happens in these studies. Now, I will say it seems pretty clear that the most prized food would have been meat, and more specifically, organ meat. I know there's a lot of people right now who are obsessed with the vegan diets and the vegetarian diets and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But if we want to look from an ancestral perspective, our ancestors would not have avoided animal products. They would have sought them out. Why do you think there are cave drawings of hunting animals? Why would our ancestors have gone through all of that if the bounty wasn't worth the risk? And when they did catch a mammoth or an ox or something big, right, and they hunted that down, do you think they would have looked at the liver, the kidney, the heart, etc., and looked at it and gone, I don't really want to eat that? No. They would have eaten everything that they caught. And so again, we can use our ancestral lens to understand that our bodies evolved to actually eat these things. We diverged somewhere from our plant ancestors, somewhere around 1.5 billion years ago, give or take, which means that when we eat plants, we're essentially trying to run Windows on a Mac. Can you do it? Yes. Is it going to run as well as if you had a PC? No. Essentially, they're different operating systems. Now, what you need to understand is every single thing out there has a defense mechanism. Everything has a defense mechanism, except animals' defense mechanisms are neutralized when we have them on the plate. Plants, however, their defense mechanisms are a little bit more subtle. And the reason why is because they can't run away, they don't have claws, they don't have fangs, but they do have defense mechanisms nonetheless. Now, I'm not gonna get too into that right now. I'm gonna do a whole entire separate video on this, but essentially the idea is that meat is very, very good for us. We've eaten meat for a very long time, and some of the highest concentrations of vitamins and minerals in any food that we can find on the planet come in the form of organ meats. If you're interested at all about organ meats or anything like that, how I prepare them personally, anything like that, I'd be happy to share them with you. Again, as always, ask me in the comment section. Next up, guys, is about fasting. Now, there's a huge fad around fasting. We all understand that fasting is good for us. Some people have heard about autophagy, some people haven't. Essentially, autophagy is just the process by which we kind of, from a cellular perspective, just kind of clean up our bodies. We get rid of the things we don't need. And this happens in an accelerated fashion while we're fasting. Autophagy is supposed to be 3 times more as effective or 3 times more as efficient when we're actually in a fasted state, and it can actually climb from there. Now, fasting has a ton of benefits beyond autophagy. Of course, there's kind of mental clarity. There's the convenience of not needing to eat if you have to get a bunch of stuff done. And I know that might seem crazy, guys, especially if you're someone who lifts, kind of like myself, but you'll begin to get used to it and you'll begin to see the advantages, and you actually feel really, really good after a day of fasting. If you
24 hours, 36 hours, even 48 hours.
Which is something you should work up to, guys, but definitely it has its benefits. Now, there's going to be people out there that doubt the value of meat, like I said, the vegans and the vegetarians. And I'm not going to do a huge video on this now, like I keep saying, but what I will ask you is, where are you guys getting your creatine, your carnitine, your choline, your B12, your riboflavin? Guys, the list goes on. And these are essential vitamins and minerals, essential things that we need in our body to actually perform at our best. Can we survive eating these other things? Yes, we can survive. We can survive eating McDonald's, although not really for long. Yes, you can survive eating these things, guys, but we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. That's the whole point of this channel. Because if you can thrive, then you can actually leave a dent in this universe. And again, if you can become something great, you must become that thing. Opportunity is obligation, guys. So now I'm going to begin to wrap this video up by telling you a little bit about how the ancestral lens can actually help you solve problems. If you haven't figured it out already, guys, essentially you can just ask yourself, is this evolutionarily consistent? This lens is really, really valuable because if you don't know if you should eat something or be doing something or something like that, we can ask ourselves if our ancestors had access to these sort of things, or at least something that's similar to these sort of things that we're thinking about engaging in or doing or putting in our bodies. And it can really help us in that dichotomy of, do we take road A or do we take road B? I encourage you guys to seek out more resources like this. Again, if you have any questions about anything I said about how to use the ancestral lens, how it can apply to kind of more sophisticated problems or more specific problems that you guys have in life, please ask me in the comment section. And I'd love to give you guys examples of how the ancestral lens can help you solve problems in real time. And I truly do believe, guys, that this is one of the most important lenses that I've spoken about, if not the most important. The reason why is because when we live in an evolutionarily consistent way and we focus on our past and consider our past and our decisions, then our future will turn out better. As always, guys, I really hope you guys derive some value from this video. If you did, please let me know by leaving a like. It really helps me on the algorithms. Also, please ring that notification bell. That way you can always be notified whenever I upload any video whatsoever. Please leave a comment in the comment section because I love hearing from you guys. Give me any suggestions, ask me any question, or let's just have a conversation, whatever you want. Finally, guys, I really encourage you guys to go back and watch the other videos that I made specifically with respect to lenses, because that way you can get as much value from all of them, because they do stack and they are more and more helpful the more that you have in your toolkit. With that said, guys, I'm Spencer from Must Become. I believe that if you have opportunity, it's your obligation to actualize that opportunity. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.